All right, so first thing, so if you're setting up on-premise Voquill for your organization, you'll head over to docs.voquill.com and go over to the on-premise setup section. So before we get started, there's a couple prerequisites. Just make sure you have Docker installed on your host machine. So wherever you're trying to run Voquill's private server, install Docker on there. And the second thing is you need to obtain a Voquill Enterprise license. You can reach out to us at enterprise@voquill.com to ask for a key, and then we'll send that over to you, and that'll be used to kind of run your server. Okay, next thing is on your server, what we're going to do is set up a Docker Compose network. So you copy this content here, and over on your server, and this has to be on your server, create a Docker Compose file at whatever location you like. This is docker-compose.yaml, and you'll just paste that content in there. Okay, so when you paste that in there, you should have 3 different containers. So there's an admin container. This is like the admin portal that you can use to manage your organization. There's a gateway container. Now this is the actual Voquill server that kind of like routes and handles all the requests for transcription, dictation, and agent mode and all that. And then you have a Postgres database. This is just where we store the data. And again, this is all running privately on your network. So this is your server, private to your organization. Okay. When you have that all pasted in, and make sure when you receive your license key, just make sure to put it inside of here for this environment variable. That license key is going to be what activates the server. Okay. And once you have this all configured, you'll go to your terminal. Again, we're on the server machine, and we're going to run docker compose up-d. This is going to spin up the server running in the background. Okay. And as soon as this spins up, we'll go over to our Docker desktop just to see. We see that these servers are running. We have our admin app running, gateway running, and Postgres running. Okay. We also see our Postgres data mounted there. All right. So that's kind of like the server setup here, how to get Voquill set up on your premise. Once you have Voquill running on premise, you'll take a look at how you configured your admin app. So this is running on port 5100. So we can actually go look at that in the UI now that the server is running. And so I'm going to head over to port 5100, and we can see our enterprise website here. So once you set this up, like the very first time you set this up, the first user that you create in here, which is going to be yourself, is going to be like the first admin in the company. So I'll just create myself a user. I'll do test@voquill.com. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Super fun password. Once I've kind of filled out this form, I can create an account, and that will sign me in. Okay, so you'll notice that user that I just signed in as myself has admin permissions, and I'm now like logged into the admin console. And a very quick tour through this. Users is where you'll see like the members of your organization, like who's in which seat. And you'll also have another tab for global dictionary. And here you can define terms that are specific to your organization. So if there's like a word that Voquill keeps messing up on, you can specify it here, and it'll use that for kind of like looking up words in your dictionary. Next, you can define global styles. And this is basically like different flavors that you want Voquill to sound like when you're dictating. And both the global dictionary and global styles, they're all shared to members of your organization. So people who are running the Voquill desktop app, they'll have access to those terms and styles that you define here. Okay, transcription providers is basically like what is used for actual dictation, like how voice is turned into text. And we'll walk through how to set these up later. And AI providers are basically LLMs, so things that convert text into text. So this would be something like OpenAI, OSS, ChatGPT, models like that. And we'll register those providers within here. And finally, over on the settings page, you'll just have access to basically like your license and when it was issued, when it expires, so you can kind of have some knowledge of that. And also there's these feature flags down here where you can configure the admin app to do certain things based on what you want. But yeah, so that's a quick overview of the admin app. So Vocill's server can also transcribe everything locally on the host machine, on the server machine. So you can avoid calling out to some external provider. You can basically run it all on that machine. Now, if you want to do this, just make sure you have a GPU and like 16 gigabytes of RAM. It's probably a good amount. If you have a big organization, you're going to want more computers than that. But yeah, okay. So if you want to do this, head over to local transcription inside of our docs, and you go down here into the Speeches API. So on the same Docker compose file that you used to set up the initial server, you're going to be placing this like speeches component here. And you'll want to grab this one if you have a GPU, so latest CUDA. I don't have a GPU. I'm actually running on a Mac right now, but so I'm going to grab the CPU one. But if you have a GPU, definitely grab this one. And we're going to copy that and paste it over in our Docker compose file. Okay, so first thing we need to do is mount the volume for Speeches. Speeches is like an open source Whisper manager, basically. And then we'll place the Speeches container inside the Docker compose file. So once we've placed that in here, then we'll go to our terminal and we'll just simply run docker compose up-d. All right, so when this is finished, let's give it a second. Great. When this is finished, this means that Speeches is now running on our server machine, and now we can use it. Now it can be a provider for Voquill server, for Voquill Enterprise. So if we go back over to our Voquill Enterprise, to transcription providers, now we can actually register Speeches as one of our providers. Over here, Speeches, and I'll just give it a name, Speeches1. Okay, and then for the URL, this is going to depend on how you configure Docker. So we'll head back over to our Docker file. We put Speeches here, and we're hosting it on port 8000. Since I'm running this on my local network, Speeches is the host because it's basically Docker connecting to Docker. So my URL is going to look like http://speeches. Oh, there we go, 8000. And this is local, so there's no API key. And then for the model, I'd recommend like large v3 if you have a pretty beefy machine, but I'm going to go with base just because I'm running on a Mac right now. I'll click save, and we'll see this little syncing indicator. So this means that our server is trying to connect with Speeches and is pulling down that model, the Whisper-based model. Once this turns green, we'll wait for it for a second. Then this means that the model has been pulled and now it's synced and ready to go. So we can now start using Speeches for our vocal transcription. Okay, so within our admin portal, there's this AI provider section. This is where we'll configure which providers we'll use for post-processing. So this includes things like cleaning up text, formatting emails, and all the stuff like that. So over on this tab, we'll click Add Provider, and we're going to go through and click Synthetic.ai provider for this round. And we'll just give it a name, so I'll call it Synth.ai, and then we'll provide our API key, which I grabbed that from their website, Synthetic.ai. Paste that in, and for the model, I'm going to come over here to this Models tab for Synthetic, and grab GPT-OSS, and I'll paste that in here. Okay, when we're done with that, we'll click Save, and then this little syncing status will show us whether or not we've integrated with this provider yet, whether it's working or not. Okay, looks like it's good, and so that means that Synthetic.ai is correctly configured. Okay, the next step is to run through how to actually connect the Voquill app to your new on-premise server. So the desktop app runs on different computers on your network. Like you might give one to your coworker and to your other coworker, and so we need a way to connect those client machines over to our server. Okay, so typically this is done through Microsoft Intune or some other similar service where we'll actually like set this up for you. But I'm going to show you how to set it up manually, just to kind of get you familiar with it, so you can see how it works. So if we come over here to our docs, over to our setup again, when we're configuring the desktop app, on side of the client machine, so like this is my coworker's computer, we're going to open up enterprise.json in one of these paths, and you're going to pick the path based off of which OS they're using. So I'm on Mac OS, so I'm going to copy this string here. I'm going to go back over to my code editor, and I'm going to open that up. Okay, so it's over here. And if we go look back at our Docker Compose YAML that we were working on before, there is right here on the gateway, the port that we're using for our gateway. So when Voquill desktop is going to connect to this private server running on our on-premise, it's going to connect to this port here. And so when we configure this enterprise JSON, we need to point it at that server. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to create this enterprise JSON file at this location, and I'm going to paste in a gateway URL pointed to localhost 4630. That's the same port that we're using here and the same host that the server is hosted on. All right, when I configure that, and this is placed on my machine, then I can open up Voquill now, which I'll do that here. And we'll see Voice OS for Example Corp. So this means that Voquill is actually pointed at our server now. So we're correctly integrated. So now as a coworker, an employee of your company, I can come in here, I can click Get Started. I can sign up with my work email, which I'm just going to do user@voquill.com. And we'll put a password in, and create account. And then I can just put my my name in here. So I'll do other user, and I'll run through the setup process. I'll configure my hotkey, test my microphone, and then now we can test out dictation. So just a reminder, Voquill is now connected to your server, and it's sending voice to your server and getting transcriptions back. So we're dictating entirely locally now. So I'll press my hotkey. Bagels are the breakfast of champions. And it'll take what I say. It'll send my request over to our on-premise server. It'll get the request back, and we'll just paste it in the text box. And really quick, just to illustrate kind of how useful this admin portal is. So if you come over here into Global Dictionary, and I want a new term in here called like T-roll or something like that, and maybe I want like a global style in here for super businessy, and like make me sound really businessy with lots of big words. Obviously, do a more useful prompt like for styling, however you want to style your words in your organization. And then over here on the Voquill app, if I were to just come over to the dictionary page, T-roll is now loaded there. You can see this term is managed by the organization. And styles, if I come in here, I can select super businessy as a style. And regarding those feature flags that we talked about earlier, like let's say that we want to use like the manual styling for the app. So I can come in here and choose manually switch styling. And now my writing styles page is different if I reload this thing. It should refresh every minute, but I don't want to wait for that right now. Now writing styles is using this cool new like focused styling system. Okay, so I can select writing styles here, and we can do super businessy. Let's just try this out. This selected. Hey Bob, how's it going? Really good meeting yesterday. And Voquill is going to take what I have there and use my organization styling. So yeah, that's kind of it. And this is Voquill running entirely on premise. Local to your organization, so no data is leaving whatsoever. And yeah, if you have any questions on like the setup process or run into any snags, just feel free to reach out. My email is josiah@voquill.com. You can find the email on the website, or you can just contact me on Discord. I'm pretty active there too. Okay, thanks.